Check out cgmasters.net for more free tutorials and comprehensive training, including the character creation series, which covers this area in much more detail and goes from modeling to rigging, texturing, and rendering a character. I've also got an animation course coming up, the Animation Primer. So hi guys, it's Lee Salvemini here from CG Masters. Today I'm going to be showing you how to get face controls working and working really well on your character. Check the annotation here or the link below for setting up a rig onto a character if yours might not have one, and also a tutorial on creating these facial shapes here. You'll need at least some facial shapes set up to get these controls working, so feel free to use the start blend here if you just like to follow along. So this start file begins after creating the facial shapes, and I've also brought in some basic visual controls. So what do we have working right now that's actually rigged? So the eyelids are currently rigged and they're all working. We've got the eyes attached to the controls. Things like the eyebrows here, the lips and mouth, these are movable controls that we're going to attach to some of the shape keys. They're not ready yet. And some of these other controls that you can see here, they won't be movable, but we'll select them and then move a slider, which will move the shape key that way. So just a couple of initial things to let you know about this face setup. Here under the rig layers, you can turn the facial controls on and off. And if we just come to the armature options here, I can turn on the names checkbox, and that will then show the names for each one of my bones when the armature is selected. Now these movable eyebrow shapes might be a good one to start with, so we can go through the process of how we set up and attach a shape key to one of the control UIs on the face. So first off, we're going to make the eyebrow.L control up and down movement, move the eyebrow up and down. And so here's our L up and brow down L shape keys. The first step here is that we're going to just select it, and we can see its effect. I'm going to right click on the number, the value number, and then add a driver. And so it's going to turn purple, and that will mean that it now has a driver attached to it. It's not going to be animated using keyframes. It will be animated, so to speak, using another object's motion or another factor or property. So having done that for the brow up L and brow down L, I'll just split the window and open the graph editor. And here in this panel, I'll change from F curve to drivers. And so this now shows our driver curves. When you add a driver, say to the brow up or brow down, we can see the two channels here on the left at the top. And it automatically makes a curve for our driver that basically goes from 0, 0 to 1, 1. And again, the difference between your normal animation keys and a driver is that the time value will actually relate to the up and down movement of this brow control object. So let's go and set that up. We've currently got two of our facial shapes that have drivers, so I'm just going to hide one, and we'll leave the brow up curve here in our graph editor. I'll first right click select this top right key of the driver. We've got the two, so this will be the one that's at frame 1 and value 1. And we can see that we've currently got a variable added, all these different properties that we'll go through and explain. A quick test to make sure the driver works is just to come to the expression property here and just change it to 1, 0.5, anything between 0 and 1, and that will basically test out the driver. So now let's say that rather than just giving it a number, I'm going to switch it to averaged value as the type. It would tell us, oh, we have an invalid target channel. So okay, let's go and find out what that target channel will be. If I just select the eyebrow.L control, this is the one that we want to move up and down. And if I hit the N key and open up the properties window, we can see that we need to give it an object. So we know that that's Alvant Rig, as you can see here. If we select any of the bones, the object name is Alvant Rig of the armature. So I'll just type that into the box and select that. And next up, we're going to double check and find out our control name. And of course, in that case, it's eyebrow.L. So to find out the channel that we need to apply to this driver, I'm just going to select the eyebrow.L control. And you can see that we've currently locked everything but the Y location up and down. And so that's a simple one. The Y location up in local space is the direction that we want this control to go to make this value go up of the face shape, and that's how it reads it. So we're going to switch from X location as the default to Y location. In local space, the eyebrow L will move up, and as you can see now, here we go. It's moving the facial shape of the eyebrow up. There's only one annoying thing right now, and that is moving very slowly. So we need to adjust the curve so that, and I'll just move this up to where I'd like the control to be at the very maximum of the eyebrow up face shape. And if I just double check that number, I can actually select this very key that we had, the one frame 1 value 1 key. I'm going to change this to the value that I had for my eyebrow control, which was 0.01. And so now you can see that will now make the maximum point of the facial shape at 0.01 along the y-axis of the eyebrow L. Now, since the frame amount is how much the controller moves, the value amount is how much of the shape key plays. So if you did want to increase any of the shapes past their maximum 1 value, let's test by moving the controller right up here. And if we just come and select the face and bring up the shape key itself, down here in the range, you've got a max setting which you can actually increase. So now as the controller goes past the point where the shape key went to 1, it will now increase further to until the value reaches 1.9 or whatever the max range is set to. So with that done, let's move on to the brow down.l. I'll turn on its visual eye icon to get it visible. And we can see we now have a blue line representing the brow down as compared to the brow up being a red graph driver. So now most of the settings will be similar to our previous driver. I'm going to make the Avant rig our object. I'm going to switch to Y location local space, and I'm going to make a average value as the type. Now the one big difference here is I'm going to select the top key. Now instead of making it 0.01 as we had before, I'm going to make it minus 0.01. It will be pretty much the opposite direction. So 0 is the default position of the eyebrow control, and if you go plus and up on the y-axis, you get the brow up, and again by making that a minus 0.01, it's going to actually lower the shape key. So if we now select the eyebrow L and attach that as the driver controller, there we have it working perfectly. As soon as it hits 0, it starts switching to the eyebrow up, and as soon as it hits 0 and goes below that, it instantly starts morphing into the brow down shape, and so you get this really nice mixing of both shape keys, and you can't really tell the difference at all. And so now we come to a bit of repeating time. We're going to be grinding through and adding drivers to the brow up and brow down.r. So I'm going to pretty much exactly duplicate this. The settings are pretty much exactly the same. We're going to be linking the Avant rig as our object. It's going to be Y location, local space, and it's going to be an average value driver type. The only difference here is going to be switching the controller to eyebrow.r. And so even the minus and plus 0.1 for each driver will be the same, and we'll get an exact copy happening just attached to those different drivers and the different controller. Up next, let's go through and attach some expressions to our brows as well. So we've got here a sad.l, mad.l, and surprised.l. I'm going to give all of those 3 drivers, and we'll now see them show up in our graph editor. Now this will be a little bit different to our previous up and down eyebrow shapes, as we won't be using the controller to actually move it in 3D space. If we select the eyebrow.l, we're actually going to use some object properties. So if we come in and select the bone options with the eyebrow.l selected, you can see here we already have a few from a previous rig that I transferred over from. These are properties that we can add and name ourselves, and we can use this data to attach it to, for example, drivers and various other parts of Blender. So let's just delete those with the minus key, and we'll come and add our own just to show you the process of how to set them up. So basically we just hit add and then hit the edit button on any of the 3, and I'm going to rename the three of them sad.l, mad.l, and surprise.l. So that's pretty much all we need to do there to set them up and have them ready to use. So the basic idea here is that we're not going to be using the controls up and down or any directional movement in the 3D space as a 0 to 1 value. We're going to use the 0 and 1 value of these properties. And if you hit enter to go into the properties panel and scroll down to the bottom or wherever the panel might be, the properties panel, you'll now see that they're also listed in the 3D view panel there for easy access. Since this is a bit of a different setup, let's go through this slowly. So first off, I'll select the sad.l value channel, and instead of transform channel like last time, I'm going to choose single property. So like last time, we have an object we can apply to this driver. Just like normal, we're going to make the object Alvant rig, the armature, and now we'll have a path box show up instead of the place where we would choose a bone. So to now attach the property to this driver, I'm going to right click on the sad.l value, and I'm going to choose copy data path. Now what that does is that makes a link basically to that property and lets the driver know what the value is. So all I need to do now is just come over to the path box, making sure that my sad.l is selected, and simply hit Control V over the box. I don't have to click it or anything. Just highlight it with the mouse by mousing over, and then hit Control V, and that will paste that link into the box. So now instead of scripted in expression type, we're going to switch to average value again. We can see now it's gone all the way to 1, and now if we lower that value, we can see that it's actually linked up. You can see the value move as we increase or decrease the property value. And so now that's all linked up, we can control that from the 3D view. There is some simple scripting you can use to actually load up some of these into visual sliders, and you can then choose any object that you select to show these sliders and adjust the face. But it's a little bit left field for this type of tutorial, so I thought I'd just get it up and running, practical and usable. If you're curious about adding this extra flair and usability, check out Volume 2 of Character Creation, and I go through all of that in a full chapter detail. So we've just attached our sad.l driver to a custom property. Let's now go through and repeat that for the mad.l. So I'm going to select the channel, and then just like last time, right click and copy data path. I'll set Alvant rig as the object and then paste that data path into the path box. So once again, we can do that for the surprised driver. And you'll know that it's worked when you see that shape appear as 1 since the property is set to 1, and then when you drag it down to 0, you'll see it actually deactivate slowly. Now, thanks to copying from my Character Creation Ninja rig, I still have the object properties remaining from the last eyebrow.r control. Since we've been through adding them, I'll just leave these ones here, and I can actually just copy them straight over. So copy data path. Now we still need to add a driver to each of the 3 sad, mad, and surprised.r shapes. And then making sure I've selected the sad.r, not the sad.l again, I'll come through and repeat that process, adding a single property driver, making Alvant rig the object, copy pasting the data path into the path box, making it an average value. And so there, now we have them all working together. You can make some cool little combinations and test out the rig and the controls. So by selecting the eyebrow.l, just to make things easier, in the properties panel there in the 3D view, you don't have to leave it. You can just slide them there. You can right click and add keys to them as well. Okay, so eyebrows done. Let's move completely to a different area now and check out some of the shape keys for the mouth. So similar to the eyebrows though, we're going to start with moving the mouth up, down, left and right. I'll start off with mouth up, and basically we're going to give it the Alvant object rig. It's going to be a normal transform channel just like the earlier eyebrow up and down movements. So this time I'm going to check the mouth control and move it up. I'm going to find a good spot where I'd like it to be at the full up position, and you can see now it's actually moving along the Z axis, this control. So I'm going to copy the Z axis number and copy it into the frame value amount of the highest key. So here we go, by entering into the frame amount 0.013, That now means that value 1 will happen when we move the control up to that Z number. That's pretty cool. It's nice, fun, logical steps to get this all set up. For now, it's just going to be repeating this again, but of course, we're going to be modifying it for each direction and value amount. So there's a few different variables that we need to take a look at as we go through adding these different directions. So for mouth down, I'm going to make everything pretty much the same. I'm just going to make the frame key amount here at the top minus 0.013. And if I feel the motion is a little too extreme as it might be here, I can just select the mouth down and change the maximum to, say for example, 0.5 if I want to halve how far the mouth can go down. And so by playing around with those max and min range parameters, you can slightly adjust the mouth shapes to not do as much or push a little further and even blend in a bit with some of the other shapes. So now let's work next on the mouth L. This time I'm taking the X location there in the properties panel. I'm just taking that value and applying that to the frame. So in this case I'm going for 0.019. And that's starting to look really cool as we move it up, down, left and right. So let's just add the right mouth shape to get them all working together. Again, I'll just make it minus 0.019. Basically a negative version of the left side frame amount. And there we go. It looks kind of weird, but this is mostly going to be for adjusting along with other shape keys and lip sync. But it's a really, really handy tool to make facial shapes and different expressions and talking shapes look a little bit unique and not blend too mechanically to each other. So as well as up, down, left and right, we've also got some twist motion. This is going to be using the Y rotation of the control. You can see I've got X and Z locked. So I'm going to take the degree parameter here. I'll add Avant Rig as the object. And now I'm going to make it Y rotation of local space and add the mouth.m as the controller. So I'll basically rotate to where I'd like the twist to be complete. So let's say 25 degrees. And in this case, minus 25. Now I've found that that's a little bit off. So I'm going to have to make it 0.25. And that now matches up. I went a little bit low with the number by 1 decimal. So compared to translation, rotation, you can usually go a bit higher with the value compared. So that's working pretty cool. We've attached both of the twists now to 25 degrees each way will mean full twist, and moving it around as well. If you're done with testing the control, you can hit Alt, G, R, and S to reset the movement, translation, rotation, and scale. With the mouth pretty much complete, we'll move on to the lips. So we've got the top lip control here all ready to go. I'll now, just like before, add drivers to the relevant shapes. So we've got our mouth top lip up and top lip down. I'll give both of those a driver. I'll now come to the bone menu here, and we're going to add a new custom property. It's going to be called top lip up. I'll add one more and make it top lip down. So I'll now copy the data path of top lip up, place that into a single property driver, average value, and then we can see that's now applied. I'll do that to the top lip down as well. And we can just quickly test them together. Repeat for the lip lower control as well. So 2 custom properties for lip up and lip down, and attach them to the driver of each one. So now we'll have control over the lips to work with the mouth. So now let's see what these cheek controls are going to be used for. Basically, these are a good position to control smile, frown, pouting for each side of the mouth. So in this order, I'm going to just come and add a driver to mouth E.L, mouth U.L, mouth frown.L, and mouth smile.L. So I'll come in and quickly add 4 drivers. I'm going to call them E, frown, smile, and also the U shape, the pout shape. I'll add .L on them since even though we're going to be selecting one control at a time, if you do add sliders down the track, you'll be able to select both cheekbones and see the .L and the .R at the same time in the 3D properties window. So once that's connected, I'll take the parameter down to 0, and that's now completed. I'll now do it again for the frown, smile, and the U shapes. Copy the data path, and when it's all hooked up, you'll see it snap to 1 since the property is set to 1, and then you can just take that down to 0, and that will complete it and reset it to default. We'll speed up some more now to go through the right side shapes. So adding drivers to the .r versions of all of our E, smile, U, and frown shapes. Making sure that the mouth.r control is selected for creating these custom properties. Again, with some of the scripting to create the visual sliders, you can see here, for example, the left IK, FK arm controls. I can select both controls and see both sliders, and so that's how it'll work, that you can select both, say, cheek controllers and can be able to animate the mouth.r and mouth.l, smile, frown, and all that together. So we'll continue with copying the data path and applying it to the mouth.r shapes. And now we can have a little bit of a test of all of these shapes and controls working together. So it's a good mix of sliding these parameters for the different shapes and then also adjusting the position of the mouth or the eyebrows. I'll reset everything back to 0. And now we've got a couple more left to go, not too many. Let's come and check out the eye squint. Eye squint L and R, it can work fantastic to make a smile look real or to add to anguish as well. It's a very interesting shape that works a lot with different types of expressions over the rest of the face. Now I'm going to apply it to the nearest control. I could add in another control closer to the eye there, but I figure this one is close enough for it. It will work well to hold a lot of different shapes at once. So I'm going to add the squint to each left and right mouth.l, mouth.r control. And finally, our nose controls here will control both the sneer and also the nostril flare. So I've made a sneer.l, flare.l, and the same for .r on the right nostril control. I'll just make drivers for those face shapes and set them up with the Arvant rig single property for each of those control properties. It's completely up to you how you'd like to set these controls up as well. You could even make the up and down movement of the nostril control, make the sneer go up and down with the control. So you can also scale out. For example, you could set the transform property to scale, and when you scale the nostril control, the flare of the nostril goes out and back. So there's lots of different options on how you can set this up, and it's completely down to what you'd like to do when you're animating and moving the controls. Now you might get some things that don't quite work right. In this case, I've stuffed up the flare.r shape. To fix this, I'm just going to delete the driver, and it hasn't been mirrored, so I'm just going to keep it selected, come up to the menu here for the shape keys, and choose Mirror Shape Key Topology. And so now that should make it correct. Before it was flare.l, it was the same shape as flare.l. So I'll re-add the driver. Luckily, our object properties and everything will still remain, so I'll just quickly come and copy the data path and reapply it quickly to a new driver, and then we'll have it working fine. So that's the brunt of the shapes there. Best thing to do now is just try out a couple of little facial tests. To prepare for this, I'll just do a quick little bit of cleanup. In the armature options, I'll just click the names checkbox, and that will turn off the names that we had turned on earlier. I'll go along, and if I find any, like the squint.l here, that don't seem to be moving when I move the property, I'll just come in and check for the problem. In this case, I need to recopy the data path. And that one seems to be working all fine. So once you find a problem, just have a play around with all of the different controls. For example, the u.l, I just need to rename that property. And we go. Now I can continue onwards. Here everything's working completely fine. The nostril controls, the brow controls are all working great. and just some quick adjustments. What I basically did is just went to Google Images, picked out an image that I thought was cool to try and mimic, and that's a good way to test the face rig out. In this case, some Nicolas Cage. He came up automatically so much when I just entered in facial shapes or something, face expression. Here's another one I quickly did as well. Another Nicolas Cage, I think that's Con Air. He's in, and you can see the sneer there working quite well with the squint as he's looking into the sun. So that's all working pretty well, and I think I'm ready to go on, and now I can start animating the character's face. One last thing to point out is probably the jaw that I didn't go over. I'll just quickly hide the hood area of my character. I've basically selected an area of the jaw and minused that from the head raw by clicking remove with the jaw vertices selected. Basically, to create the jaw line, I just selected the area of the jaw here and also alt right clicked just to get some of the lips as well. I'll then just go in middle mouse box, deselect the vertices down the neck. I just added that to a jaw vertex group, and from there it's pretty much just blending out. So I'll come in and I've just added a weight of 1 to create that jaw, and again I deleted then those vertices from the head raw vertex group. And so pretty much then to create the nice blend so that the mouth will open, I came into the modifier for the armature and turned on in edit mode and sticking the vertices to the vertex groups applied and such. This allows me to come and basically see the effect that moving the jaw has on the lips in real time. And then in the properties panel, I'm able to see what each vertice's weight is to each vertex group. And from there, I was able to select a bunch, say in the lip closer to the corner of the mouth, and then come and just change the weight amount and watch it move up and down until I get a nice smooth line. I did that for each row of vertices along the lips, and then it's just a matter of blending out with vertex paint a little bit of the areas around the cheeks so it's not as sharp. And so from there you can even use the shape keys with the jaw open, just like you would with the mouth closed, and the rotation of the jaw moves wonderfully along with it, so you can get some really cool face shape setup. Grab the final blend file below and you can have a look through this file and learn a bit more about it as well. So thanks again guys for following along with this tutorial. If you have any questions, just ask below in the comments section and I'll answer them as much as I can and in as much detail as I can. Have a good one and happy blending!